and welcome. I'm Marina Kim and these are the latest news from Kazakhstan. A strike of oil field workers is still ongoing in the Aktabe region. 300 people in the settlement Zhanazhol demand a meeting with the leader of the company CNPC Aktabe Munaygaz to discuss the raise of salaries, improvement of working conditions and dismissal of the top management. Local governor Akim and prosecutors as well as security officers of the CNPC arrived at the site. The administration reps have demanded to disperse before the evening, otherwise they threatened to detain the activists. One of the protesters was detained at one of the local police stations. However, the oil workers keep standing and demanding that CNPC leadership come out and speak to them. In case of failure, they promised to go on for a long-term rally. Since the vast majority of protesters represent the transport department, the operations in Zhanazhol minefield have been partially stopped.
At the moment, our managers Talmuhammed Baybatyrov, the head of the 11th, and Satpayev Batyrgaly, head of the 12th, vessels headed to protest site. Prosecutor office and local administration representatives arrived there as well. One of the protesters' cell phone was confiscated by the police officer because he was recording the rally on a video.
He is not a leader of the nation, but it's disgrace. These were the slogans that journalists Sergei Duvanov and Andrei Sviridov shouted in the main national square of Almaty on Wednesday. They protest against the newly adopted law on the leader of the nation. Right after the rally, journalist and the photographer were stopped by police. They are incriminated in carrying the posters with controversial slogans.
During the campaign, journalists Duvanov and Sviridov pulled out their posters and commented their positions regarding the nation's leader law. No police was seen in the square.
It's a disgrace of a nation that such law was adopted. It humiliates feelings of all people who are able to think progressively and are for democracy in this country.
However, when the protest was over, two journalists of the Vzglyad, Igor Rezin and Mikhail Karchevsky, were stopped by police just on their way to the office. They took away one of the journalist's ID card along with the poster he took from Duvanov. Then other journalists came in to help him, explaining that he didn't attend the protest, after which police returned the ID card, but then kept the poster.
Попросили слить фотографии с прошедшего пикета.
They asked us to destroy all the pictures where Sviridov and Duvanov are holding the posters. I didn't agree, but they insisted, saying it's very important that I do what they ask. They have totally ignored my right for a lawyer, although Yutkin was on his way.
Мою просьбу об адвокате проигнорировали, хотя уже ехал Уткин.
In Astana, the law on the leader of the nation is not discussed. Majlis members didn't overreact on its legitimization.
Then everybody in the hall admitted there was nothing to discuss indeed. The leader of the nation law is quite precise and definite. Any other interpretations could be perceived as a bias. All the judicial formalities are observed and any potential contradictions were eliminated. The definitions were verified. In regard its legitimacy, then the law has been so thoroughly developed that not the leader of the nation law fits the constitution, but the constitution was made to fit the mentioned law.
Personality cult, in my understanding, is an issue of a different nature, but leader of the nation is just an evaluation of people, and we simply have legitimated it. In his own speech, Nazarbayev said that people have made its assessment. I think it's inappropriate to put these two terms in one line, and it may insult the leader of the nation's status. It doesn't contradict the constitution. The goal was to make our president official leader of the nation, so it implied only some little changes of professional terms. Nothing more or less. There is a phrase saying fame and peace can never lay into one bed. We can see that president has earned his fame, but he can't get a quiet and peaceful life. Therefore, I think that nation's leader is legalized form of what has been a fact. Only some people exaggerating about violation of constitution.
If the law on the leader of the nation, which came in force just yesterday, doesn't cancel the upcoming elections, it may still affect it. It raises questions amongst other potential candidates whether or not even to try for a run for the president's post. Because now the chances for anyone to become country's leader are very blurry. However, some oppositional forces say they will continue struggle for power.
Analysts talk about three possible scenarios. First, the elections will be held and the current president will win, or with majority vote another candidate will win and become a puppet president ruled by the great leader. Thus, Kazakhstan will keep its reputation up in front of the global community. The last option implies that the elections will be cancelled and the current president will keep the power permanently. Will the elections be held or not? Well, I keep saying if the president will keep providing a common welfare of population, people will be content about that and they may initiate it themselves, saying we don't need elections. At the same time, the communists confirmed their will to participate in the 2010 elections, while they have missed two previous ones. Social Democrats from Azad Party shared similar concerns about the upcoming elections. They claim that the leader of the nation, Nazarbayev, will do everything possible not the elections be held. Regarding the presidential elections, I think that Nazarbayev will try to cancel them by any means, or he may bring up that the leader of the nation may not participate in one line with ordinary candidates and may cause a lot of difficulties for us to compete with him. Azad members will participate in the elections should they not be cancelled, but the party members realize that they may have a little or no chance at all. Adopting this law itself has discredited the idea of elections, including the presidential elections, because having legitimate leader of the nation, it is hard to compete in any elections with him. All politicians agree with one thing: President Nazarbayev will not give up his post to anybody, because they think it's very tempting to put a successor and keep enjoying the power. Even if he goes for this step, assigning somebody there, he may not sit aside and be an observer. He probably will still be involved and dictating, but I think as long as he is alive, he is not going for it. Kazakhstan, or its current president, has not yet given up on the attempts to enter the country in the list of 50 well-developed nations in the world. However, most of his actions contradict to his big ambition. Experts claim a nation with legally permanent leader is rather going back to feudalism.
Leader of the nation not according to law but according to a decree. Russian political scientists are actively discussing the new status of Kazakh president. Our reporter got acquainted with their opinion.
Those who followed the process of adopting the bill on the nation's leader may notice the insistence of the ruling political forces of Kazakhstan in awarding Nursultan Nazarbayev a special status. Even when the Kazakh leader has publicly insisted on not accepting this bill, the parliamentarians eventually approved it. This has created a number of assumptions about preparation of a possible successor of the power. Since the mechanisms of legitimization of a special status of Kazakh president under any division of the power, this hints on the operation to bring his successor to the power. In the meantime, some part of Russian political experts approves the new status of Kazakh president. Nursultan Nazarbayev can now reinforce his power, covering by the support of population. However, people's opinion on this particular law was not considered at all.
Есть суверенность страны, есть уникальность каждого государства.
Well, there is a sovereignty of the state. Each state is unique, and, well, to be honest, it's not correct to judge whether this uniqueness is good or bad, democratic or not democratic.
Просто неадекватно с точки зрения понимания вот этого феномена государственности.
Experts also claim that none of the neighboring countries' leaders will dare to criticize Kazakh president for his new title. According to international principles, it may be perceived as interference in the internal affairs of another state. It may not, however, stop public and media continue discussing this issue.
In the meantime, relative of the newly entitled leader of the nation is fighting for every dollar in the court. President's son-in-law, billionaire Timur Kulibayev, won a lawsuit against businessman Mukhtar Ablazov yesterday. Court expenses equal to $5 were to be paid by the respondent Ablazov to Suita Kulibayev. Lawyer Sergei Utkin is not happy with the decision of the court and is sure it is useless to appellate to higher instance courts.
Verdict is made. Mukhtar Ablazov's article published on 15th of January this year to be admitted as containing inaccurate information and the author to pay the suitor, who is Kazakh president's son-in-law, the court expenses equal to $5. This was the Judge Kalkeev's decision made on Wednesday during a trial closed for media.
Как я вам и говорил, там элементарно стоит фраза, что
As I already mentioned, the respondent wasn't able to provide the proof of his claims he made. As simple as that, you know, well, this could be called as a slapstick. During 3 days of trial, Judge Kalkeeva has declined 3 requests made by Ablazov's lawyer. First, she declined requests for calling in 3 witnesses, then for entering new files upon the record, and finally the disqualification of judge request. dismissed the respondent's request on disqualification of the Judge Kalikeeva on common pleas on Kulibayev against Ablazov to defend the honor and dignity, and therefore continued the trial under the chairmanship of Judge Kalikeeva. The suitor, Kulibayev's lawyer Bayram Ahmedov, a Supreme Court justice in the past, fully supports the decision made by Judge Kalikeeva. We got what we wanted. Further decisions will be made by Kulibayev, not me. Defendant's lawyer Sergei Utkin said he does not agree with the verdict and may file a court preference after consultations with Mukhtar Ablazov.